Good morning, everybody. As Lottie said, great session there from Barry. Always great after listening to Barry talk about communication and his outlook on life. So really good. Thanks for joining me for this next session. I'm going to be talking about the new contactless patient journey. As Lottie said, my name's Guy. I've been with SOE for 7 years now, and the patient journey has been something that we've been very keen to help our customers with and talk about for about the last 18 months. And it's certainly something that we've reviewed lately during lockdown. Chance to review it again, think about stages that are still relevant and the things that you need to be doing differently. I think the main reason that we need to do that is because everyone is doing it. If you think about patient journey, you're naturally thinking about customer journeys. And I've got some examples here on the screen of going to the shops or really just going anywhere at the moment. And the whole experience, the whole world has changed, and it's become very contactless, whether it's people in a shop sat behind screens now for protection. You've got people queuing outside 2 meters apart to get into the shops. Even payment. What I've really noticed is anywhere that I've been where I used to potentially pay cash or they preferred cash have now switched completely to contactless as a preference. When you're in an environment, there's hand sanitized stations, markings on the floor to keep everybody 2 meters apart. And I don't know if anyone's attempted to go into one of those small supermarkets where there's a one-way system set up, but it's very confusing and easy to, suddenly find yourself face to face and having to turn around, and the whole environment's very strange and very different. Right through to the contactless deliveries that we're experiencing now, where people are staying 2 meters apart. So the whole experience of consuming has changed, and it's going to be the same for dentistry as we come out of lockdown and move into the new world. And I was keen to talk about it today because I think optimizing the patient journey is particularly important in dentistry for a couple of reasons. Firstly, patients have always needed a bit of a nudge to come back. So we know that even before lockdown, under 50% of UK adults were regularly going to the dentist. Maybe only sort of 40% were going regularly. And now we've got a public that are generally a bit worried. So you can see on the graph on the right there, even the younger generation, nearly 60% of them are concerned about the virus, and it goes up as you get older demographic. So people are going to be worried about going to the dentist, going anywhere. And if you combine that with the actual press that's been very, very out there in the last few weeks about dentistry, it is recognised as a high-risk environment. Dental hygienists as a role, one of the most exposed to the pandemic, obviously without the PPE. And people are aware of that. The general public have seen that, as well as some of the nightmare stories around people doing their own dentistry at home. Through no fault of our own, the industry's been closed down, and people are concerned about that. And maybe there's some trust that we need to rebuild. So it's really important that we mitigate these fear factors. Ben talked about that yesterday in his session. We need to mitigate the fear as far as we can to encourage people back. And the second reason that we need to optimize these journeys is because we need those patients back into dentistry as soon as possible. Firstly, for their oral health. We know that thousands of people have been out of dentistry for too long. There's articles recently where they think up to 600,000 patients have needed urgent care during lockdown, and perhaps only a fraction of those have actually seen a dentist. But also we've got the wider concerns around wider health, oral cancer screenings, there's thousands of people referred every week normally, and that hasn't been happening. And Lisa talked a little bit about that yesterday. But the other reason we need patients back is due to the business side of things. Your practice needs to fill those revenue gaps. Average hourly earnings is going to be so important if you see less patients per day. And FTAs, we've always been keen on helping practices reduce their fail to attends. They're going to be more costly than ever in this new world. So really, really important that we make it easy for patients to come back to dentistry and remove any friction that there may be. And by friction, we mean reasons for people to drop out. So it could be they can't book when they want to, they can't find the information that they need, the administration's too much effort, they can't get through to anybody on the phone. We need to make those issues disappear as far as we possibly can, particularly at a time where people are scared. So as we go through the session, just try and think about these two kind of factors that run side by side of what you want to achieve with your patient journey. You really want to mitigate the fear and risk, and there's things you can do through practical steps and communication. Communication has come up a lot in the last day and a half. Really, really important, especially right now when there's so much uncertainty in society. And then the second part to think about is how you make your journey low on friction, so it becomes effortless for a patient to engage with you. So think about times as a consumer where you've been on a website and something hasn't loaded in 10 seconds, you've given up because it's too much effort, or you've thought, I'm going to try that, you've had a go now, got 2-minute break in the day, it hasn't worked, you haven't managed to get something done, and you don't go back to it. So don't, we mustn't be giving patients an excuse to not come back because it's too much effort for them or too difficult. So let's think about fear and friction as we move through the journey today. These are the 6 steps that we're going to be talking about. Now, there are obviously more steps than this in the entire patient journey, but I want to be focusing in on the areas that I think have changed and we need to adapt to in the last couple of months. So we're going to be looking at choosing or re-choosing a dentist. A lot of patients have not been to the dentist for a while. You've got to think about how you help them re-choose your practice, even if they are a loyal patient. What happens pre-appointment, before, in the run-up, what you can do there to make sure those patients come. The contactless arrivals as they hit the practice, what happens in that new environment, and people have been making lots of changes. We've done some surveys on that. Contactless departures as people leave, again, how do we make that as easy and contactless as possible, and then what you should do to follow up afterwards. So as you run through, think about each step in your practice, changes you might want to make, grade yourself, think about how you could make those stages easier and less fearful for patients. And that's the stages we're going to go through this morning. So stage 1, re-choosing a dentist. As I said, there may be this feast period that Ben spoke about yesterday when patients rush to the dentist. But after that, you're going to have a period where that calms down, and then at certain stages, patients are going to be looking to re-engage. Most likely, whether they're looking for a new dentist because their old dentist had no capacity for them, or they just want to check on the status of their existing dentist. Am I even able to go back yet? They're likely to end up in Google as their first step in their returning to dentistry journey. So your online is really important. We're going to talk more about that today with Anthony next on the reputation session, and Sarah talked about it yesterday in terms of your marketing. So reviews have always been really, really important. We've talked about this in the past in terms of a patient making a choice. So you need to think about your practice online, whether that in that local search, do you stand out? Have you got enough reviews? Are they a high standard? And I think that even more now, people are going to be looking at those reviews and being almost pickier than ever. As I said, Anthony's going to talk more about that. But it's probably a bit like restaurants. Nowadays, I think people are going to be even pickier than they were before, looking at those reviews when they're deciding to even book a delivery or a takeaway. So think about your online presence. We'll give you some more tips on that later, but make sure you stand out and you will get chosen. One of the things that has changed is thinking about how you promote what you're doing around COVID-19. This is my local dentist who has been quite proactive on this, and you can see on their right-hand side there, they've utilised their Google My Business page and actually shared some updates and posts to the wider audience to show that they're thinking about COVID-19, giving updates, what's changing in their practice, what they're currently doing. And I think that as an existing patient, that gives me peace of mind that they may be closed to see me, but they're proactive in terms of their thinking around what's going on at the moment. And again, for a potential new patient, they're going to see that positively. So make sure you are utilising that online space to provide updates. You don't look like you've kind of gone into hibernation for 3 months and no one's been around. That's going to give you a good reputation online and encourage people to then click through to your website. And going back to the restaurant example, I think people now are even more concerned than ever about the hygiene ratings. I probably used to give a cursory look to that, make sure it's somewhere at the right end of the scale. People are looking, they want 5-star hygiene, and in a way, patients want to know, what's your hygiene rating? How are you responding to this? period. So put that online and utilize that through your Google My Business page. And so it flows onto the website. Again, same dental practice here. They're showing that they've been updating their site, and lots of dental practices have been doing this. They've been showing the current status, what we're doing in this period when we're looking to reopen. And you want to make sure that's the first thing people see. Again, you're across the current situation. What you don't want to do is get a patient to your website and then potentially lose them. You want to fill them with information immediately, and then make it easy for them to book. That if they're going to call you and you're going to offer that, you must make sure you're going to be able to answer them quickly and get them booked in. But the best way, the easiest way, is to allow them to book online, and one click, couple of clicks, they can actually book themselves in for an appointment. You know, and it's really important that they've got that option, because if they can't book, they can't get through on the phone and they can't book, they're more likely to go back to Google, look for another one of those options that came up in the search, and pick a different practice, especially if it's out of hours and you're closed. So what we do know is that nearly half, 47% of online bookings are actually made when you're closed as a practice. So make it easy for your patients and let them book in at the time that they want to book in with you. Or why not? We talked about virtual appointments. Why not offer a virtual appointment? It's certainly something that a patient may prefer to do in the first instance at the moment. It may not be that they're concerned about even being in your practice. It may be that they're concerned about leaving the house. People have been stuck inside for a long time. They're concerned about travel, public transport. They may put off the dentist until things have settled down a little bit. So think about virtual appointments. It really could be a great way for you to engage a patient in that first instance, or have a chat with them. It's not kind of as out there as an idea as perhaps it was before lockdown. Everybody's got really used to video conferencing now. Look at us today, you know, hundreds of us communicating through this platform. And if I think about when I go back to the office, when we're allowed back in, I don't think I'll be on many, you know, conference calls just on the telephone anymore. This is the new way to be Zooming and seeing people face to face. So I think it's a great introduction to your practice for people. Also for cosmetic treatments, they may just want to have a little bit of a chat about that and not come in. There's more on that later today in the Henry Shine session, so please have a look at that. But it's worth giving them that choice at that point. You know, do you want to come in or do you want to book a virtual conversation with us? So that's the proactive patients who are looking and have got to your website. But of course, you're going to have a whole bunch of existing patients who, you know, are going to need more of a nudge and more of a welcome. And that's where that communication really kicks in. So think about, have you been communicating with your patients during lockdown? We got some statistics back from the survey that Lottie sent out, and 1 in 5, 21% of practices haven't actually communicated with their patient base at all. They've closed their doors. If you're one of those practices, please sort that out very soon. Get communicating as soon as you possibly can, just to update them. Again, I've got a couple of examples from my practice. I've had regular communications from them letting me know what's happening. They're closed at the moment, but they're taking calls. Here's your local hub. We're going to be reopening. These are the changes that we're going to be making. It gives you an opportunity to communicate, let your patients know that you're changing, you're adapting to this new world. You might be introducing vulnerable clinics for certain demographics of your patient base, extra safety measures. It's really important. I think you're going to be recalling patients, but you also need to let them know what's changed. As Ben showed yesterday with his statistics from New Zealand and Australia, people aren't rushing back. The numbers are down on this time last year, and they need that peace of mind and encouragement. So make it easy for patients to return, give them that peace of mind, and get those regular communications going as we move through this period. So that's stage one. The next stage we're going to think about is pre-appointment. So however they've gone about it, your patients have booked. Now what? What's the key points in this stage of the journey? If it's a new patient, you know, again, it's an opportunity to send them a letter or an email with all of the details about what you're doing now in the practice. Not only, you know, obviously what you offer as services, but how you're going to manage that workflow for them as they come to see you. And even as part of your reminders that you're going to be sending a week before, again, talk about the contactless workflow, explain what's expected to patients, how things have changed, and keep reminding them, giving them that reassurance as we look to mitigate the fear and make it easy for them. And then finally, 2 days before, final reminder text, keep the practice in their mind with a link to their forms. And what we want to be doing nowadays is sending forms to patients to complete before they come in on their own device, at home, in their own times. It's really great because it reduces admin, obviously, in the practice, but nowadays as well, the consideration is human touch points when they're in the practice. So getting all the admin done before they come in means that they won't have to, you know, spend as much time in the waiting room, and also not have as many touch points with forms and paper, which we'll come on to a little bit later. So it's really important. And in fact, if you step out of dentistry for a while, online forms is really an expectation anyway, versus pens and paper. If I think back to the last couple of times that I've bought a car, 4 years ago, I remember it was a really stressful Saturday and I queued to get in across the industrial estate, parked up, took the family into the showroom, spent a horrible hour filling out loads of paperwork while the kids were running riot and trying to break all the cars. And I signed, eventually left with the car, but it felt quite a stressful scenario. Fast forward a few years, and I did all of that form filling out in my own time, in the evenings, on my computer. Went in, it was a 5-minute finalisation of the contract, and I came out of the car. So it's part of a modern customer experience anyway. And I think now with dental, we've got that added benefit of less time and less touch points in the waiting room. So what forms are we sending pre-appointment before patients come in? There's a whole array. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the COVID-19 form that we're going to be launching soon, but you know, already you can send contact details to be completed, medical history, FP17s, consent forms, smile surveys. Medical history is a really good one, especially if people have got any medicines and they don't want to bring them all in with them. They just want to take a bit of time to fill out that form. So send them ahead of time. It's a secure portal, log in, fill out those forms, and that data gets pushed straight into the patient record in Exact. So, you know, really easy to use and something that patients can do when they want to. The new form that we're thinking about is going to be increasingly important, is all around asking those key questions about COVID-19. You know, have you had a confirmed diagnosis? Are you waiting for results? Have you travelled internationally? Obviously not likely right now, but in the future. Have you been in contact with someone who's had a confirmed case and been isolating for 14 days? Or do you have any symptoms? Now, we'd like to assume that patients, if they said yes to any of these things, would not come. But there is a chance that they could, and you need to be, especially if they're in pain, you need to be aware of that. So if you can get this form to them ahead of time, answers come back into the practice with alerts if there's anybody you need to contact, and try and encourage them, obviously not to come in for that appointment, book them in perhaps in another couple of weeks. If it's an emergency appointment, direct them to a care centre where they will have the correct environment for them. Because what you want to obviously avoid is those high-risk patients coming up to your practice, turning up, and then potentially causing an issue with your other patients and your team. So that form will be launching in the next couple of weeks, and you'll be able to start sending that out to patients as well. And we do know that forms are well received. So we launched this about a year ago, and we're seeing sometimes within a couple of months, well up into the 50% of patients are completing the forms that they need to before they come in. And interestingly, they are doing them as we thought they might when the practice is actually closed. So, you know, 40% nearly are doing it at that point, and many, looks like 70% on the way into their appointments that day. So happy to do that whilst on route or in the morning before they come in. So it's something that's welcomed by the patient base in our statistics that we've seen so far. And even if you don't necessarily have all of the information from that form, you have actually got data within your PMS that you can utilise. So from patients' medical history previously and what's been updated, you're actually going to be able to highlight vulnerable and extremely vulnerable patients that are coming in. That data is in there. What we're looking to do is bring an alert into MPC, our business analytical product that we've had many customers are utilising at the moment. A new alert that tells you the number of vulnerable patients that are coming in today, tomorrow, and the day after. And then when you're having your team huddles, it's something you can refer to. If you've got those vulnerable patients coming in because of their medical history, you can ensure you give them special attention, special care, and that they feel safe in that environment. The data will also be there to allow you to click through and see the reasons that they fall into a particular category. But you've got the data, and you'll be able to utilise that to make sure you're well prepared for those patients coming in. Okay, so the next stage is the contactless arrivals. And this is a key moment. We're looking to reduce that fear, that risk factors as people arrive. And as we saw at the beginning of the presentation, contactless arrivals, contactless experiences has been a huge thing across retail, and well, not so much retail, but foods at the moment, shops, anywhere that you're going is in a contactless environment. And there's lots of things you can think about here. Staggering appointments is really important. If you're having, 5 appointments all starting at 9 o'clock, you're likely to then have a busy waiting room. You want to avoid that. What you're looking to do is minimise the time of people, obviously, in that waiting room environment, and minimise the touch points. So think about staggering. Also, having a facility to call patients in from outside the practice, potentially in their car. And I know that dental practices in other countries have been doing this, just manually using their mobiles and say, look, text us when you're here, we'll text you when you're ready to come in, and you can move straight through to surgery. Again, it's something that we're looking to bring into our journey with customers. The patient call facility is in development right now for the part of the patient portal, so you'll be able to do that through that environment. The patient, where they go to fill out their forms, will be able to communicate with the practice and say, I'm here, and then they can be called in. Or failing that might not always work, the opportunity for a patient to then check themselves in as well. And Lisa mentioned the benefits of this yesterday. Again, the patient can just come in, scan a QR code, take a seat, and be ready to be called through, or go straight to surgery, ideally. A bit like the example I've got with the ASDA, click and collect, that live communication, I'm on my way, helps everything run a lot more smoothly. So think about that moment of arrival through into the practice, opening the doors. And we're not talking about the surgery element here. That's going to be spoken about later today, but anything around the surgery, all part of that environment for the contactless arrival. Think about how you can reduce the fear at that stage as well. And it's all about reducing contact points and making the patients feel in control and safe as they come in. And people are doing lots of different things. There's sanitisation, hand washing as people come in. If you're concerned, absolutely within your right to ask someone to take their temperature to double check if you feel that they could be at risk. We're seeing reception desks now with screens as well as another barrier to infection, and the waiting rooms having plenty of space, not too many people in there, so that you're not cramming people in, perhaps like the old days, but there's more space and there's more time. And also, if you are investing in air filtration systems, if a patient can see that, again, it's a really good peace of mind. It's a safe environment, and these are all things that you can be promoting. So back in those letters and emails that you're sending out to patients to let them know what you're doing, you can use that on your social pages as well, your website, but particularly in your proactive communications. Let them know what you've done, and what changes you're making to make their experience more smooth when they arrive. So within the practice environment, so as I said, and as Ben said yesterday, we are aiming for all forms to be completed before a patient comes in, and minimum time in that waiting room. But that's not always going to be possible. There's a few reasons for that. Not every single person will have a smartphone and follow that guidance to do the forms before they come in. And also some people will, even if they have, they just won't have got around to it, would have missed the email and haven't had time. So you will have a number of patients getting to your practice and needing to complete their administration. What you don't want to be doing at this point is giving them a clipboard, a pen, and a bit of paper. The days of a pen that maybe 500 patients will use over a few days are gone. You need to be thinking differently. And I've got an example on the screen of all of those touch points if you are using paper forms and a clipboard. The reception team passes it to the patient completes, passes it back to reception, the paper comes out, it's scanned, it's passed to the next patient. You can't really sanitize that experience, or the paper or the scanners within that. So, you know, it's something that's going to give people slight hygiene concerns as there's constant touch points. But on top of that, it's a very inefficient way for you as a team to be managing your administration. And we did some research a little while ago and actually found that on average, having paper forms, managing the admin around them as a practice costs 24 people days a year of work. So hugely inefficient, huge waste of time for the front desk team. We've got other things they could be doing in terms of helping that patient experience run smoothly. So it's great for the patient to be not having to do that, but I think also for your team as well. So what's the alternative for those patients who haven't managed to do all their administration before they come in? We know that many practices now do have those electronic forms and signatures called CliniPad for SOE within their practice. And again, you can think about the environment. You want to keep passing those devices from people to people where you can. And there's a few options that you could be thinking about here. Putting the iPad in protective sleeves that are available, you can then change during the day and wipe down, or having your iPad within a fixed location that it's not going to be passed from person to person, but crucially having a sanitized station right there for people to use. So you can approach that, you can sanitize, complete your forms and do that again. So for the patient, that feels like a good hygienic way of utilizing that shared product. And if I compare that to a supermarket visit, I think people are used to having some kind of touching with computer screens, even if they're going as contactless as they can. So I've got an app on my phone where I'm scanning all of my items myself. I'm using bags that I've bought. I've got a clean trolley that's already been sanitized on the way through. But at the end, I do just need to scan my shopping through and press a couple of things on the screen to confirm that I've scanned everything and how I'm going to pay, contactless payment, and then right next to that, there's a sanitized station. So I'm cleaning my hands as I move through. So people are used to that, and I think they're going to get peace of mind from having that very visible environment in front of them. And again, you are going to have some patients who have some moment in a waiting room. They're not necessarily going to go straight through as much as we'd aim for that. And it gives you an opportunity, slightly differently now, to communicate with patients. Now, if you've got a patient call set up, which is obviously now possible through Exact, you know you're going to get the patient's attention. They're going to be looking up at that screen, and it gives you a chance to educate them, talk to them about what you're doing in the practice to mitigate the current situation, and also educate them on the new processes, the portal, the forms. Let them know that they're going to be sent all of their administration ahead of time and they can complete that when they're at home. You're able to actually show them the positive steps that you've taken and then call them the moment that they're ready. And it saves, again, more human contact touch points in that waiting room. You don't need reception to come round and guide someone. You don't need your dentist team, which I know people do like to come and meet, but it gives you the option to stay in that environment within the surgery, and the patient then gets called through exactly when they're ready. So again, it's automatic, and it makes it a lot more streamlined and reduces congestion in the waiting room as well. Okay, so again, I'm not talking about what happens in the surgery. We've got a session dedicated to that coming up. So we're going to move on to contactless departures, which is our next stage. And again, we've talked about this departure stage on many of our sessions in the past and how important that is. You really do need to get key things done at this point for your patients, just to make sure your patient comes back and that your practice is working smoothly. You need it to be fast and streamlined, especially now people don't want to be hanging around. They do want to be on their way. But it's important that you get that next appointment booked where you can, get a contactless payment done, which we'll come on to, and capture any missing contact details so you've got means to be in touch with them moving forward. If they haven't done them on the form so far, this is your last chance to get that done before they leave. And all of that does start with the dentist. Just saying, look, we're going to go back, we're going to get you through reception as fast as we can, just need to book you in for 6 months' time, take your payment and confirm any contact details. And then the person can go to reception and get that done. Really, really important part of the journey to make sure that they return in future. Just looking at the payment side of contactless departures a little bit now. Again, something that's changed in the last couple of months is people's kind of mindset around using terminals. Again, it's passing over, holding it. How many people have been using this today? I'm putting my card in, pressing all the buttons. What we don't really want to be doing is that anymore. What we need to be doing is letting people pay contactlessly. And that's great. That's gone up to £45. I won't be surprised if that goes up a bit higher into the future as well. So people, anything up to £45, people are able to just contactlessly pay for that. But what's also available nowadays are split payments. So we partnered with a company called ZipPay for those higher value transactions. Anybody who's shopped online and maybe used Klarna, that's the kind of thing. So you're paying for it in 4 different installments, starting today, and then 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks. So it's 4 installments over 6 weeks, which is great for the patient, because what that means is they can split that over two pay packets to lessen the burden. And also, you know, there's every chance we're going to be in quite a serious recession as we come out of lockdown, and that's going to be really useful for patients to be able to control their cash flow rather than paying for everything right now. From your point of view as a practice, you get the full payment immediately with a small transaction fee like you would with a card provider. So it opens up that opportunity and makes everything a lot more affordable. In the retail side, people using Zip and that kind of split payments do see a relatively high increase, up to 30% in payments being made. So worth considering that. Again, we've partnered with that. Let us know if that's of interest to you. If failing either of those 2 routes, you've still got another chance to pay contactlessly. What you can do, so we've integrated payments now. We're working with Payment Sense. They've got a pay by link option as well. So you can ping an email to a patient with a link, and all they've got to do is click through and just pay on their phone. So there is an option for every single payment type to be done contactless now, and we can talk to you about that, and we can help you. Final stage of the contactless departures is not missing that chance to get patient feedback. It's really important. Sarah talked about it yesterday. Anthony will talk about it on the next session. Obviously, you're not going to be as likely perhaps to offer somebody a book to write a comment in, or a form to fill in right there. What you can do is just let your patients know. Please expect an email from us. We're going to be asking for your feedback. Really appreciate a Google review if you've had a good experience today. It means a lot to us to get your feedback. And just let them know it's coming. You've got a good chance of them completing that for you. Statistics do show that nearly 70% of patients will, if you ask them, give you a review. And then what you can use is you're building then a whole flow of great online content reviews for the very first stage of the journey I spoke about at the beginning, which was choosing the dentist. So this helps you then drive future new patients coming through. And also don't forget to keep an eye on those reviews as they come through and respond to the good ones. It's really nice to respond. Someone's had a good experience. So you're so pleased to hear that. Thanks very much. But also the bad ones. Sarah said this yesterday, don't leave the bad review hanging, just respond and explain, sorry you had that experience, that's not what we aspire to. Please give us a call and we'll sort it out for you. But it's really a great opportunity as a patient leaves, just to remind them that they're going to be getting a survey, and please do give us that feedback. Again, contactless, in their own time, on their own device. So the final stage I just wanted to talk about this morning is about the post-appointment follow-up. And you are going to get a group of patients who don't rebook after lockdown. Perhaps they've gone through, they've missed that, maybe they've missed their recall, they've not had any problems, they're going to be putting that off. But what you do need is that flow of checkups around the higher value appointments you're going to be focusing on for restorative work and outstanding treatment. So you want these patients in, and you want to make it an easy process for your team. So automate that. If you haven't, I know many of our customers have automated this. It's important that you have across channels. If you haven't, and make it easy for your patient to book. Again, remove the friction. You know who they are. You know who their dentist is. It's possible just to give them a single unique link for them. They click through, and all they've got to do is pick their time. Make that really, really simple as well, and they're more likely to book. It also gives you an opportunity during this period to maybe evolve some of your messaging, like we spoke about at the beginning. Especially if you're talking further into that overdue recall period. Let your patients know, you're overdue, we welcome you back, we're thinking about your safety, reducing the appointment numbers per day, so there aren't as many patients in the waiting room. We've got contactless arrivals departures, so you should only have contact in the surgery, which is decontaminated between patients. And of course, we're going to give you the opportunity to fill out all your forms before you come in, so you can get that done. And just keep, reminding patients of the positive steps that you've made. Lisa mentioned yesterday, which I thought was a great idea, was about actually making a video for this as well. So you could explain via video, and click here and have a look at our new patient journey that we've implemented with you in mind. And I think that's a really great way of doing it as well, getting that on video, because everybody likes to be able to engage with that sort of content. So think about that messaging. But also, it's really important that you don't give up, and right out to potentially 4 years. Not every month communicating for 4 years necessarily, but keep trying and think about the different channels that you've got. We know we've got some stats on the screen here. Really good response rates from text messaging and letters and phone, if you can get through on the phone. Less so on email, but it's about catching the person at the right time with the right channel. So keep going, don't give up. Go back to the exit stage on the contactless departure. This is why capturing those contact details is so important. If you haven't got the means to contact, you're not going to be able to effectively recall all your patients as you'd want. So make sure you've done that, and then keep trying. And it really does work. Even if you're getting into the 3 and 4 years since people have come in, don't give up to those patients. They may just not have been in. And I think to an example of my wife with her eyesight. She went to the optician recently for the first time in about 3 years, and she was getting constant letters, and they started being a little bit less frequent, maybe every 3 or 4 months from Specsavers. Never got round to booking an appointment, and it wasn't until she realised that she couldn't read motorway signs until she was literally right beneath them. So slightly concerning, because I could read them about 10 seconds before, that she realised it was time to go back to the optician. And we'd moved by then. We were in, Specsavers wasn't not the nearest one at all, but because we've been reminded and she remembered getting those letters, she called them and travelled to go to that practice. So it really is worth keeping in touch with those patients, so you're in their mind when they do realise that they need to get back into dentistry. As well as your recalls, you've also got your other treatments and your cosmetic options that you want to follow up with. And again, if you're not being proactive with these patients who've shown interest, maybe they've filled out a form or they've got an open treatment plan, they're unlikely to contact you anyway, but especially in the current climate. So be proactive, get yourself a process in place for that. We've got Care Manager within Exact that allows you to really tightly manage all of those outstanding treatment plans. You can add notes to the record, you can call them from there, you can send out automatic communications to them, and keep following up as far as you can. And practices that focus on this get those lists down very quickly. But also it's an opportunity again to bring that virtual consultation into play within your practice. So it may have been a while since you've spoken to that practice about that treatment plan. So why not say that, we'd love to get you back in for your treatment that you need. If you want to have a chat about it first, book in a virtual consultation. It's really easy for patients to do, more flexible on time. You can convert those plans into booked appointments through that face-to-face conversation, albeit digitally. And possibly cosmetic consultations. It could be a way that you could drive a revenue stream from that if you wanted to have chargeable conversations around it. So it's definitely a good option. Great to put that in front of patients at that point with any of your follow-ups around those treatments, and see if they want to do it. It's easy, it's low risk for them, and obviously there's they don't have to leave their house. So all of the fear factors in society disappear at that point. So think about that as well. So just to wrap up, they're the 6 stages that I've gone through today. As I said, please judge yourself, benchmark your performance as a practice. What have you done across each of these stages, and what do you want to do as you come out of lockdown? And of course we can help at SOE. Book yourself a business bounce back consultation. You can do that on the forms at the end of the sessions, or you can go onto the chat on the website. And we'd love to do that. We've spoken to many hundreds of our customers in the last few weeks around these topics, and we're really keen to help. We're helping practices put in contactless arrivals and departures without any charges until September. We'd love to get all of our customers doing that. So please do get in touch around it. And just a final thought, some of this does feel like a lot of change. It's a completely different environment. We know from the surveys that practices are making these steps, but there's still a way to go. You've still only got 60% of practices who are offering electronic forms, 70% offering contactless payments. We need to get those numbers up higher. But what I would just leave you with is that, you know, if you change this journey and you really wow your patients, then that's going to become word of mouth for you. People are going to tell people. Talking to a colleague the other day, there's not much to talk about at the moment when you catch up with people, not a lot happening. But if you've had a brand new experience and you've gone to a dentist and it's been really smooth and everything's gone really well, you're going to tell people. And we all know word of mouth is really important. So, you know, get this done, get your patient journey optimized, and that will also help you attract more new patients as well. So thank you very much. That's the end of my slides.
Well, we've just got the Q&A session.
Questions?
We've had loads of questions coming. We've only got a couple of minutes, so we'll just have to answer a few. And I've also put the link for the form that Guy just mentioned in the chat, so people can have a look at that, and I'll also share our contact number as well. So let's go through a couple of questions. So does Exact allow you to automatically ask patients for a review rather than having to do it via the waiting room, which we can
It does, yeah, it does, yeah. So you can set it up via our reputation manager so that a patient will automatically, if they've had their treatment complete or been in that day, gets an email that night. So what I was referring to is just let them know it's coming. You don't need to do anything, just tell them you're going to get an email. We'd love a review from you if you get a chance.
Brilliant. Okay, next question from Lynn. Have you got any suggestions for contactless forms for elderly patients without technology other than posting the forms to them?
Yeah, we've actually found across the customers that are using this that surprisingly all demographics are happy to use it. What most older you know, generations do have iPads nowadays, or at least a computer. So surprisingly, more people are actually sending them to their actual PC at home and filling it out. But yes, if you feel like there's a patient who absolutely won't engage, then you could send those forms out beforehand to get them to fill in. But I think you'd be surprised. Nearly all age ranges are engaging with the technology. Some people we've actually seen patients, even though they've filled out the form digitally, they've then printed it out themselves, but they're getting it done ahead of time. So give it a go. I would encourage that.
Yeah, I think my grandma's loving a Zoom at the moment, so she's never even been able to take a phone call before. So I think this has changed things. Okay, for contactless payment, I assume this would be Apple Pay, as there is bank limits on cards of £45. Which usually wouldn't cover dental fees. So I think they're just wanting confirmation.
Yeah, that's right. So it would be, so no, I wasn't talking about Apple Pay specifically. Contactless would be 45, but you then have that zip pay option that I spoke about around splitting payments, or you can send a link to the phone. So you can send the patient right there a link that they would then pay on their phone for any amount that would be. So yeah, £45 contactless. The other route would be a pay by link email to the patient for any other amount, or the split payments by zip.
Brilliant. And the last one links very nicely onto our next session. Where can I get advice on managing my Google review page?
Well, yes, on the next session you can definitely get that, but we can help with that as well. So we've got specialist teams in the office who help customers implement their reputation management strategy. So again, book a bounce back review. We'll go through all of that with you, and we've helped many customers get more Google reviews running. So yeah, listen to Anthony for sure, and then get in contact with us.
Brilliant, thank you. So I've put the link for the bounce back review in the chat. I will put it in again, so it's at the forefront of the chat, along with our contact number, because we're getting a massive influx of questions about the contactless journey. So thank you very much, Guy, for your presentation. That was brilliant.